At my son's 10th birthday, he tore the wrapping paper off a box from my sister. He reached in, then yanked his hand back. "What's this?" he asked, trembling as he held the document. I snatched it from his hand and my blood ran cold. Everyone went silent. 20 minutes later, the police were at the door. My name's Eliza, and for most of my life, I was the glue that held everyone else together. It wasn't a choice, really. I just kept doing what needed to be done. When my sister racked up credit card debt, I helped her consolidate. When our mom's roof started leaking, I covered it. When my dad needed a car to get to his new job at 63, I co-signed the loan. And when my sister couldn't keep up with her mortgage, I paid it for 4 years. All while raising my son, who was everything to me. He was my second child. My first. We lost him in the hospital after 3 days. I don't talk about it much. There's no way to explain how that changes you. How it reshapes every breath you take after. So when I say my son is my whole world, I don't mean it as a phrase. I mean it literally. His 10th birthday was supposed to be something special. Not just because he hit double digits, but because I was finally out of debt. I'd stopped paying my sister's mortgage 6 months earlier. She didn't take it well, but I told her I couldn't keep holding everyone else up while trying to build a future for my kid. She hadn't spoken to me since. So I was surprised when she showed up that day. She came late. Everyone else had already arrived. My parents were there. They'd come together even though they divorced 2 years ago. And a few of my cousins, my son's school friends, and our neighbors. The backyard was all balloons and a rented bounce house. My son was halfway through a cupcake when my sister walked in holding a large, perfectly wrapped box. She smiled like nothing had ever happened. No mention of the 6 months of silence. Just walked over, kissed my mom, waved at the guests, and handed my son the gift. He looked at me first. He was hesitant. That was unusual for him. He's always been so open-hearted, so trusting. But something about the way she handed it to him unsettled him. So he took it. He tore the paper off quickly. I remember I was refilling drinks at the time, but the room suddenly got quiet. No music, no chatter. Just silence. I looked over and saw him holding something in both hands, arms stiff, frozen like a statue. He didn't smile. Didn't laugh. Just looked at it, confused. "What's this?" His voice cracked a little. I walked over and he handed me the paper. It wasn't a toy. It wasn't a card. It was a legal document. I thought maybe it was a joke, some kind of weird prank. But when I read the first few lines, I felt my legs go weak. It was a custody petition, with my sister's name on it. Filed, stamped, signed. I snatched it from his hands and read faster. My sister was suing for emergency custody of my son, claiming that I was mentally unstable, that I'd endangered him, that she had evidence I was unfit. I looked up. My parents were staring at me like I was the problem. My mom wouldn't meet my eyes. Then my sister said something. I still remember it word for word. "You should have kept paying the mortgage." My ears rang. People started murmuring. My son clutched my leg and asked if she was taking him away. And I was so stunned I couldn't even answer. 20 minutes later, the police arrived. I don't even remember calling them. I thought maybe someone else had, one of the neighbors maybe. But when the officers walked into my yard, calm but serious, I knew it hadn't been for noise. One of them asked for me by name. They had copies of the same document I was still holding. And a note attached. A report filed with Child Protective Services just 3 days before. I hadn't seen it. No one had contacted me. They asked me to step aside and talk. I said no. I wasn't leaving my son's side. Not after what had just happened. But they were gentle. Too gentle, like I was already labeled the unstable mother. My heart was beating so loud I couldn't hear anything else. I remember holding onto my son's shoulder like if I let go, they'd physically remove him. My sister stood nearby with her arms crossed, a smug smile like she'd already won. My mom whispered something to my dad and nodded toward the police. Neither of them said a word in my defense. One of the officers took the document and stepped away to call in, checking the legitimacy. The other stayed with me, asking if I was willing to cooperate while things were clarified. I didn't scream or argue. I just asked one thing. Is this real? Are you telling me she can actually do this? He didn't answer right away. While they waited for confirmation, the tension grew. One of my cousins was trying to escort the kids back inside to keep them from seeing too much. Some of the adults were pretending not to look, pretending not to whisper. My son was standing completely still like he was afraid to breathe. Then my sister walked over. "I thought you should know," she said loud enough for the officers to hear. "I spoke with a judge last week. Everything is in motion. You're done, Eliza." I snapped. I stepped forward and for a second I wasn't even thinking. Just reacting. The officer blocked me gently and the other came back over with an update. The documents weren't fake. Not at first glance. The system showed they'd been filed. Not yet processed fully, but enough that the police were required to respond. Because the report from CPS made it seem urgent. Dangerous. She'd claimed I was having episodes. That I'd left my son home alone multiple times. That I had a history of depression I hadn't disclosed. My sister knew exactly what she was doing, and she'd waited for his birthday to drop it all. The officers told me no one was being taken today, not yet. But until the court hearing, I had to agree to certain conditions. My sister, unbelievably, was listed as an emergency contact and temporary guardian if anything happened to me. They asked if she could take my son for the weekend, just while the paperwork was reviewed. My parents backed her. They actually defended her in front of everyone, said it was just temporary, and I should stop making a scene. My mom even said maybe this would force me to face reality. Reality? The only reality I could see was my son looking at me like he was already being taken. I told them no, absolutely not. That's when my sister whispered something into the younger officer's ear. He nodded and stepped away again. I don't know what she said, but 2 minutes later I was told they'd strongly recommend that I cooperate voluntarily, or CPS might take action immediately. They didn't threaten me outright, but it was enough. My sister walked out of my yard holding my son's hand. I didn't sleep. I just sat on the living room floor with the custody papers in my lap, staring at them like maybe if I looked long enough they'd turn into something else. Something harmless. But every time I blinked, the words were still there. That stack of legalese wasn't just paperwork. It was a loaded weapon. And my sister had aimed it directly at my heart. I kept thinking, how did she get all of this done without me knowing? How long had she been planning it? It wasn't the kind of thing you whip up overnight. She had dates, statements, details about my schedule, even my old medical records. The more I read, the colder I felt. None of it was entirely made up. That was the genius of it. Everything she wrote had a sliver of truth, twisted, deformed, ripped from context. Yes, I had a history of depression. From when I lost my first baby. It wasn't a secret, but I'd been stable for years. My doctor even wrote a letter confirming it when I applied for a teaching license. She had taken that old pain and repackaged it as instability. Claimed I had erratic episodes. Claimed I screamed at my son. That I'd left him home alone multiple times. That never happened. Never. I was at the police station first thing the next morning. I asked to speak with someone, anyone who could walk me through what was happening. They were polite but passive. They kept telling me I had to let the process play out. They said her documentation was in order and that a custody claim, even an emergency one, didn't mean I was being permanently separated. They made it sound procedural, like I should be calm, rational, cooperative. I told them she was doing this because I stopped paying her mortgage. I told them it was revenge, not concern. They nodded like they'd heard 1,000 versions of that story. I asked where my son was. They said officially he was with a temporary guardian for 72 hours, under CPS observation. That guardian, of course, was my sister. She hadn't taken him. She was complying with the system. They kept using that phrase. Complying with the system. My hands shook the whole drive home. I called CPS next. I thought maybe I'd get further with them. But again, the same wall. They said an investigation was underway. They said I would be contacted soon. When I asked what the accusation against me was, they told me the report claimed I was emotionally unstable and had endangered my son by neglecting his needs. I asked for the evidence. They said it would be reviewed internally. Everything felt backward, like I was guilty until proven innocent. Then I called my parents. No answer. I called again, and again. Still nothing. I drove to their house. My mother opened the door halfway. She didn't invite me in. She looked tired, like she'd already decided how this story ended. She told me I was being dramatic, that I was escalating things, that I needed to let it play out and not make things worse. And the way she said it, like she'd rehearsed it, like it wasn't even her words. I asked her straight up if she was siding with my sister. She didn't answer. I walked away without another word. By noon, I was meeting with a lawyer. His name was Ron. Older guy. No fluff, just facts. He read through the documents with a strange calm, then said one sentence that changed everything. This smells like fraud. He got to work immediately. Started making calls, looking into court filings, verifying names, checking dates and license numbers. Within 24 hours, we had confirmation that the notary listed on the documents didn't exist in the state database. The judge's signature, the one that had made the whole petition look official, was forged. My sister had taken an old legal document, copied the layout and inserted new claims, dates and her name. She filed it through someone she knew at the courthouse, hoping it would sneak past the radar long enough to seem legitimate. She wanted the system to believe it was real, long enough to scare me or win by default. Ron filed an emergency injunction. We notified the court. I submitted a restraining order request and contacted CPS directly with my custody records, health clearances, and character references from 2 school administrators and my employer. But none of that meant she had to return my son immediately. That's the part no one tells you. You can be right. You can have proof. But the system doesn't fix itself overnight. Especially when there's a child involved. Every correction comes with paperwork, signatures, review boards. Nothing moves fast, not even justice. My son called that night. From her phone. He said, "Mom, are you mad at me?" I told him no. That I loved him. That I was coming. Then he said something that broke me completely. "I don't want to stay here again." I sat in silence for a second, trying to stay composed. Then I told him the truth. "You won't. I promise." And I meant it. By day 3, I wasn't sleeping, barely eating, just moving from task to task with military focus. Ron had filed everything that could be filed: restraining order, fraud complaint, custody motion, but the court hearing was still 4 days away. My son was still with her. Then something unexpected happened. Ron got a call from someone inside the courthouse. A clerk. She didn't want to leave her name, but she said she'd seen something strange on my sister's petition. A signature that looked identical to one filed 2 months earlier in an unrelated family case. She hinted that there had been other unusual filings tied to my sister's name recently, all rushed, all missing formal witness records. Ron started digging. That same afternoon, he found out my sister had submitted a different petition under another name just 3 weeks earlier, claiming she was fostering a child. A completely different child. The paperwork had been pulled before it got very far, but it was in the system. He asked me if I knew anything about it. I didn't. Then I remembered something I hadn't thought about in years. Back when I was still helping her with bills, my sister had told me she was looking into becoming a foster parent. She said she could use the extra income. I brushed it off at the time, thinking it was just another one of her half-baked ideas. But now it clicked. She wasn't trying to help a child, she was looking for a paycheck. And my son, my actual child, had become her fallback plan. She didn't just want to hurt me, she wanted to own him. To list him, claim him, maybe even get state support, like she was doing the world a favor. That night, I called my cousin Ashley, one of the few people in the family who still had a backbone. I told her everything in detail. She was horrified. Then she told me something I didn't expect. She'd heard from her mom that my parents had signed affidavits backing my sister's claims. I hadn't seen those yet. They hadn't been shown to me, but they were submitted as supporting evidence. My own parents had given sworn statements against me. I couldn't even process it. I was still thinking of them as neutral, passive, maybe confused. But they weren't confused. They were complicit. That changed everything. Ron used that information to subpoena the full case file. The affidavits came through the next morning. Reading them felt like betrayal burned onto paper. My mother had written that I was emotionally volatile since the loss of her first child, and had unpredictable mood swings. My father wrote that I had severed family ties recently and refused contact, which made them concerned for my son's stability and emotional development. These were the same people I'd been helping for years. The same people who let me pay their bills, fix their problems, carry their weight. They'd sold me out to keep my sister's fantasy alive. I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I scanned every page and sent it to Ron. He said this changed everything. We filed new motions that afternoon, this time with a formal fraud complaint naming my sister and including evidence of the earlier fake foster petition. Ron also filed a motion to have my parents' affidavits disqualified, citing conflict of interest and perjury concerns. And then something else happened. My sister slipped. She showed up at my son's school without notifying CPS or the court, and told the front office she was taking him home early. She used the forged paperwork again, but this time the office manager, who knew me well, called the school district legal desk. That's when things blew up. The district put a hold on his release. CPS was notified immediately. The school called me. I got there 10 minutes later and walked into the front office where my sister was screaming at the staff, holding the same bogus document she tried to use at the party. I didn't even have to say anything. CPS showed up 15 minutes later. This time they took him, not from me but from her. She started sobbing, then yelling, saying it was all a misunderstanding, that she was just trying to protect him. But it was over. CPS took him into protective custody pending the court hearing, which, thanks to Ron's latest filings, was moved up. My son reached out to hug me before they let him out. One of the caseworkers allowed it. He whispered in my ear, "Told you I didn't want to stay with her." The hearing was scheduled for 2 days later, early morning. I didn't sleep the night before. I didn't even try. Ron and I spent every minute reviewing every piece of evidence, every inconsistency in her story, every signature and timestamp. We had a full binder of documents that painted the truth and exposed the lie she tried to build a life on. The courthouse was cold. Not physically, just cold. The kind of place where people learn quickly how little emotions matter in the eyes of procedure. My sister showed up looking put together, but I could see the cracks. Her confidence was gone. She didn't look at me. My parents were behind her. Not sitting with her, not exactly, but clearly not with me either. The judge opened the case. Ron spoke first, laying out a timeline so airtight there wasn't even space to blink. He walked through each filing, showing how my sister had submitted forged documents, presented false medical claims, and tried to exploit a personal tragedy for her own gain. Then came the bombshell. The two separate fraudulent filings. One for emergency custody, the other for a fictitious foster child, both using similar forged notary details. The judge asked if we had verified proof that the documents were fabricated. Ron produced a sworn statement from the actual judge whose signature had been forged, plus verification from the Secretary of State that the notary was fake. I watched my sister shift in her chair. Then the judge asked her to explain. She started rambling. Said she was worried about my son. That she only meant to help. She denied forging anything. Blamed someone else. An unnamed friend who might have helped her file things. Said she didn't read everything before submitting. She cried. He tried to spin it as a big misunderstanding. That's when the judge cut her off. He asked if she had anything else to say in her defense. She said nothing. Then the judge turned to the affidavits from my parents. He asked them to come forward and explain why they had submitted sworn statements against their own daughter. My mom went up. She looked fragile but not sorry. She said, "We didn't want to pick sides. We just thought, maybe she wasn't coping well." The judge asked if she understood that lying in a sworn affidavit is perjury. She froze, and for the first time looked scared. Then the judge ruled. My sister had attempted to obtain custody through fraud, forged signatures, and manipulation of court process. She was officially barred from any legal guardianship, access, or contact with my son. My parents' affidavits were struck from the record. And the judge referred both my sister and the documents to the district attorney for criminal investigation. Ron turned to me and whispered, "That's as clean as it gets." But it wasn't over. Not yet. As we walked out of the courtroom, I saw my sister trying to talk to my parents. My dad shook his head and walked away. My mom stayed behind, her face pale as my sister kept talking, fast and desperate. I couldn't hear what they said. Ron nudged my elbow. We had one more stop to make. We went straight to the CPS office. And that's where I saw him. My son sitting at a desk, doodling on a worksheet. When he saw me, he dropped the pencil and ran. I didn't care who was watching. I held on to him and promised I'd never let anything come between us again. And I meant every word. Bringing him home was quiet. No celebration, no cake like we'd had the week before, no bounce house. Just silence, safety, and the overwhelming relief of knowing he was back where he belonged. My son asked if she would come again. I told him no. That part of our life was over. The criminal investigation against my sister moved fast. The forged judge's signature, the fake notary, the previous fraudulent foster petition. It was enough for the DA to press charges. She tried to play the same game in court, blaming mysterious friends and vague confusion. But the system wasn't buying it anymore. She was found guilty of filing false legal documents and attempting to commit custodial interference. The sentence wasn't long, probation, fines, community service, but the label stuck. She lost any legal right to ever pursue guardianship again. Every record bore the truth now. Her name was tainted. My parents didn't take it well. I thought maybe they'd apologize. Realize how deeply they'd betrayed me. Instead they went silent. Months passed. Then one day I got a letter from my mother. A full page of excuses. She said she didn't really believe my sister, but felt pressured to support both daughters. She said she hoped in time we could all be a family again. I didn't reply. That part of my life was closed. I moved. Not far, just enough to be out of reach. Changed my number. Tightened every legal loop. Full custody reaffirmed. Emergency contacts updated. School records sealed. I even updated my will. At my son's next birthday we kept it simple. Just us and a few friends. A quiet party, a new bike, and a small chocolate cake. He smiled the whole time. And for the first time in over a year I did too. I've learned that blood doesn't guarantee love. That loyalty isn't something owed, it's something earned. My sister learned that lies eventually collapse. My parents learned that staying neutral is just another form of betrayal. Me. I learned to draw boundaries like stone walls. No one uses me again. No one uses my love as a weapon. And no one comes for my child. Not ever again.